my name is McCowan and I will be discussing Judith Butler, and particularly her theory of gender performativity and just her idea and her philosophies on gender. Okay, so Judith Butler, she's an American philosopher. She was born in Cleveland, Ohio. Her work primarily focused on the ideas of gender, identity, and sexuality. She graduated with a bachelor's from Yale University, which is crazy because that's one of the biggest Ivy League schools. And then after that, she actually went on to go back and to school, and she graduated with a master's and then a PhD, all at Yale. And now I believe that she teaches at UC Berkeley. One of the most notable aspects of her career was the books that she wrote. She wrote plenty of books. Her first one, and probably her most important, was called Gender Trouble, Feminism and the Subversion of Identity. And then another one of her most popular, most notable works include Subjects of Desire, Hegelian Reflections in the 20th Century France, and then Bodies That Matter, on the discursive limits of sex. So like I said, her theory revolves around gender and how we display it. Judith Butler believes specifically that gender is how we display ourselves rather than how society categorizes us. So what we display is what our gender is, and that is how we desire to be perceived. So essentially, rather than gender defining us, we define gender. The way that we act and the way that we put ourselves across is our gender, rather than the sex that we were typically assigned at birth. She thinks that gender is entirely a performance. And it's a bit of a show day to day on who you are, and you're performing these personality traits. Ideas of gender and how we display it date back to the prehistoric era. As we know, there's always been conversation surrounding like hunter-gatherer, gender roles, misogyny. There's been a constant conversation about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, and that's especially big now. That's a huge deal. But Butler was among the first to actually openly discuss that and discuss it the way that she does and with the force that she does. Right now, I'm just going to show you a little clip of her discussing her theory of gender performativity. I'll play that for you now. So as we hear her talking about there, she believes that we are not born a specific gender, like we have the genitalia, but we're not born that gender. We perform the gender that's within our personality and within our reach inside of ourselves. And that was just her discussing that. Moving on. Okay, so I'm going to discuss some ethics surrounding this gender performativity theory. 3 aspects of ethics that I think go hand in hand the most with this theory would be wisdom, justice and fairness, and then integrity. So I'll go through these each and tell you what I'm thinking. For wisdom, I'm thinking it's absolutely vital to be wise enough to understand who you are yourself on a personal level, and then to use that information that you know about yourself to make wise decisions concerning how you'd like to present yourself and how you would like to be perceived by the general public. Having that knowledge of who you are and what your character is absolutely vital in being able to express yourself, and it's fundamental to your growth and to your confidence. And then justice and fairness, I think that these are very interchangeable here. I think that everyone deserves access to express themselves within the gender and within the characteristics that they see fit and that they feel. There should be no discrimination, no marginalization of people and how they express themselves because of how they express themselves. That's a very basic principle of fairness. It's a level playing field. Everyone's fair. And with justice, I think we need to bring justice to those people who express themselves in a different way and who are often marginalized for it. They deserve the justice and the fairness to be who they want to be and be how they want to be without fear of judgment. And then with integrity, like I was saying with wisdom, you have to know yourself and being very honest with yourself about who you are And then being very honest with how you present yourself to others is a hugely important thing as well. You want to be honest with the person that you're displaying and the person you want to be, as well as honest with yourself about who that person is. So next I'll be discussing values that I think go hand in hand with this theory. And I'll name those. Those would be autonomy, compassion, and respect. And I'll go through those all. So autonomy, this is something that Judith Butler actually herself discusses very often, and that's a big part of her theory. Autonomy is often described as an independence or a freedom of self. As previously discussed, as I said before, everyone deserves the right to express themselves on the terms that they believe to be true. Whether or not those align with their gender characteristics is completely unimportant. They just deserve the right, and they deserve that autonomy to be who they are and present who they are. Going along with that, compassion. When you open the door to people expressing their gender identity and their gender differently, it's inevitable that you're going to see things that you don't necessarily agree with, or that you don't see on a typical day-to-day basis, or you don't understand. But having compassion for others and what they're going through can make you more open to understanding them and being there for them. And I think that compassion goes very similarly with respect. I think respect is also a huge value when it comes to this. Like I said, I think it goes hand in hand with compassion. Respecting others and how they choose to express themselves will lead to a much more accepting society, and that's something that we're getting much better at. But yeah, being able to respect each other will just lead to a more tolerant and accepting society. And then I think that also goes with, along with all these other things, how you can relate them to other people and yourself. I think that it's very important to respect yourself and to stand up for yourself. Judith was a great example of that. She was not the typical outline of a woman, per se, and she stood up for herself, and she said, you know what, gender is what I'm making it. And I think respecting yourself and being able to stand up for yourself is incredibly important. Moving on, discussing professionalism. Butler refers to gender as a performance, which typically you wouldn't really define a performance as something respectful that you do in everyday life. But in this idea of performance, in this idea of putting on this show, you still have to be respectful, responsible, and professional in the way that you express your personality and your gender characteristics. That's a big counter argument, I think, of her theory, is that, well, you can't be inappropriate in public, you can't express your gender inappropriately. And of course, and that goes right along with professionalism. It's incredibly important to still be professional and respectful and respect the environments that you're in while you're able to express yourself. Respecting others and being professional is still an important part, especially in something like a work environment. You would want to be respectful even if you were expressing yourself a little differently. Her modern impact has been insane. She has an incredible impact on the feminism movement and on queer studies. She was one of the first to open up this conversation of fluidity of gender, and that's a conversation that's still wildly popular today, and it's still widely discussed. And she established the feminist and queer theory, and that has spawned into many new fields of research and many new points of research. So her theory has based so many new theories and so much new information and research. Women in particular received great benefits from Butler's outspokenness. Many of them had more ability to break through gender norms and become their own person outside the confines of the patriarchy. And members of the queer community often credit her for a lot of her work. My thoughts, I think she's tremendous. I think she is one of the most impactful and one of the most forward thinkers of our generation. Her ideas, they were completely new, and they had so much impact on a group of people that are typically marginalized. I'm lucky that I feel like I am someone who can express myself within the sex I was assigned at birth, but I know that many people don't feel that way, and I'm very grateful that she gives those people a voice and gives them some compassion. And I personally think that gender-specific characteristics are very outdated, and I think it oppresses men and it oppresses women. And I don't think gender has a lot to do with the sex you're assigned at birth. I think it has to do with how you choose to express yourself and the things you value. And that's what I think about it. So my conclusion here would be that gender and freedom of expression through gender are incredibly important aspects of personality. It's vital to show others compassion for their internal personality conflicts that have to do with gender, and it's imperative that we listen to each other and we choose in the way that we choose to express our personality and gender. And I think everyone owes Butler credit for her incredible work, but especially women and especially queer people. She's become the face of a very important cause with such grace and such strength, and I truly believe that she is one of the most intelligent people of our generation.